and welcome to the NESN Patriots Podcast. I am Doug Kyde. I'm joined, as always, by Zach Cox. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It feels like it's been a while since we've had a podcast. It's only been, 2 weeks or so? But
I think it's been, 2 or 3 weeks. There was some, scheduling conflicts. I had to go to Florida. It was really tough.
Poor you.
I know. I had to spend some time in some 84-degree weather. It was really tough. But fortunately, I think I brought some of that back with me because it's going to be pretty warm this weekend.
I'm loving it.
So a lot has actually transpired since we last talked, which leads us to our initial segment, which is What's New? And number one on that list, and it seems like it happened ages ago at this point, but it really hasn't. This offseason has just been pretty busy. Brandin Cooks is out. Patriots traded Brandin Cooks to the Los Angeles Rams for basically a first-round pick. There were some other picks thrown in there. The Patriots shipped along, a fourth-round pick, received a sixth-rounder in return. But that's a pretty major trade to get rid of who was your number one wide receiver last year. And obviously that will change this year since Julian Edelman is coming back from the torn ACL. Patriots still have Chris Hogan. Patriots have a number of other wide receivers basically competing for roles underneath those two guys. But what was, I guess initial thoughts don't really matter anymore. What are your thoughts now on this trade?
I guess it's not altogether surprising, considering just that Brandin Cooks made about $800,000 last year and was a 1,000-yard receiver. That is a tremendous bargain. This season, he's supposed to make $8.5 million. If you pay $8.5 million to a 1,000-yard receiver, it's still an adequate deal, but then you can't. We never really viewed him as a player that the Patriots were going to pay what he could probably command on the open market when he hits free agency in 2019. So the fact that they were able to trade him out for the 23rd overall pick 1 year after trading the 32nd overall pick to acquire him and getting the 1,000-yard season out of him, it's a pretty solid deal all around. I think this seems like kind of a win-win for both sides. Brandin Cooks gets to go to a place. Maybe we'll see how the Rams handle his contract. Maybe they even lock him up to an extension before the season even starts. And then even if they don't, he can have a good season in that offense with Jared Goff, go hit free agency and go make some money. Patriots get a higher draft pick, which we'll see how they use that. I know we'll get into all that draft stuff a little bit more later on. Seems like a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that if the Rams can't lock up Cooks, and it's probably not a great deal from their end to give up what basically equates to a first-round pick. Obviously, like I said, there's some other draft picks thrown in there, but it's a first-round pick that you're giving up for Brandin Cooks. If you're only giving that up for 1 year, then it's not so great. Mm-hmm. I know that some people might be saying, well, didn't the Patriots literally just do that? Which, yes, they did. They gave up a first-round pick for Brandin Cooks, but then they got a first-round pick back when they shipped him out. And like you said, there was no way the Patriots were going to sign Brandin Cooks to a deal worth $14 million annually when he did hit free agency. I still think that Brandin Cooks for $8 million is a pretty big bargain, especially considering what some other wide receivers out on the open market are getting. Albert Wilson is making $8 million a year. Sammy Watkins is making, $16 million a year. Allen Robinson's making $14 million a year.
There's a whole slew of kind of second and even third or fourth tier wideouts that got tremendously large contracts this offseason. Brandin Cooks is a guy who is deserving of the contract that he has, so he's definitely a step above those guys. But it's been crazy to see some of the money that's been tossed out already.
Yeah, the chances were highly unlikely that he was going to stay with the Patriots beyond 2018. So if he had played out his contract with the Patriots, then you're talking about potentially getting a third-round pick in 2020 for him. Mm-hmm. By trading him now, you get that first-round pick, gives the Patriots a lot of options in the draft. And, it was an exciting deal. I was surprised by it just because you're always surprised when a player like that gets traded. But it's also, like you said, kind of unsurprising for the number of other reasons.
Yeah, it was one of those deals where you look at Twitter when the news is broken and say, whoa, they traded Brandin Cooks. Yeah. And then you kind of take a second to digest and see the terms. You say, all right, this makes a lot of sense, actually. It was quite the 1 year here for Brandin Cooks. Yeah. What's kind of your lasting impression of Brandin Cooks 1 year here?
He is what he is. He was what he was. He was exactly what the Patriots should have expected out of him. He's a deep threat wide receiver who can't really do anything in the shallow part of the field. He had massive games where he'd get 100 yards and multiple touchdowns, and then there was games where he'd disappear. And no one cares about your fantasy team. I know all that. But, like, I had Brandon Cooks, I think, in 2015. And you're so frustrated by him as a fantasy receiver because you start him. He does nothing. You bench him for the one game, and that's when he goes off for 8 catches, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And that's kind of what he was in the Patriots offense, where you get frustrated with him, he goes off for 2 straight games, and you're like, wow, this is the best wide receiver in the NFL, and then he disappears for 5 more games. And that's, I guess, kind of what he is, and we'll see if the Rams use him differently, but I don't think there is a way to use Brandon Cooks differently. He's a deep threat wide receiver. Even though he has all the measurables and the size and all that of a slot receiver, he will never be a slot receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like he was a weird player who was kind of both underrated and overrated by a lot of people in the media. There were people saying that, hey, this is probably one of the most important pass catchers on this team, maybe outside of Rob Gronkowski. He's one of your best offensive players. And then there were other kind of pundits who were saying, this guy's completely one-dimensional. We should get him off this team. He really has no place. He doesn't deserve to make $8 million, yada, yada, yada. I think both of those are untrue. I think he's somewhere in the middle. He's a very good receiver, but he is one-dimensional. And in this Patriots offense where they really kind of don't value those type of players as much as a Julian Edelman or a Danny Amendola type, it's not surprising that he had the good season with Tom Brady. Also not surprising that he's kind of gone out the door now.
Yeah, so moving forward, that leaves the Patriots with, as we said earlier, Julian Edelman, Chris Hogan, Kenny Britt, Philip Dorsett, Cody Hollister, Riley McCarron, Malcolm Mitchell, Cordarrelle Patterson, and Matthew Slater.
Cordero.
And Matthew Slater.
Spelled like Darrelle Revis, but not pronounced like Darrelle Revis.
Cordero, yes. And Jordan Matthews, Patriots' most recent signing, and perhaps the best deal in free agency, because we talked earlier about all those contracts that guys like Sammy Watkins and Allen Robinson, and we didn't even mention guys like Ryan Grant got $5 million. Someone else got $5 million who I was extremely surprised by. Taylor Gabriel was getting a ton of money. All these guys were getting $5 million or more annually. Jordan Matthews will make $1 million in 2018. And Jordan Matthews had more touchdowns and more receiving yards than a number of wide receivers who made more than him, like Ryan Grant, like Taylor Gabriel, like, who else am I thinking of? This is some bad radio right now that I'm trying to come up with this. But yeah, I mean, $1 million for Jordan Matthews is a pretty absurd deal, because
Cody Lattimore
is making
Marquise
more
Lee,
than him.
Dante Moncrief, Paul Richardson.
Dante Moncrief, $9.6 million, and Jordan Matthews has been a far more productive player. Jordan Matthews has more receiving yards than even Allen Robinson in their careers. And these are all guys who, like Jordan Matthews, came into the NFL in 2014. Matthews had a major down season last year. He got traded to the Buffalo Bills basically right before the season. He only had about 200 yards, 1 touchdown. But this is his opportunity. This is his chance to have a major rebound season with Tom Brady. And if he can rebound this year, then maybe he does get that massive contract next offseason. But, I mean, I'm projecting him as a starter in the Patriots offense. And I know that a lot of other people are very high on Malcolm Mitchell. I think that we need to severely temper our expectations for Malcolm Mitchell until we actually see him on the field, in OTAs, in minicamp, in training camp, and in the preseason. And, not or, and. I want to see him do everything before we're projecting him as a starter, because he didn't play a single snap last year with a knee injury that was not a torn ACL. I think there are major reasons to think that, he might not get into week 1, nevertheless, like, playing through a 16-game season. So as of now, I'm projecting Matthews as a starter over Britt, over Dorsett, and over Mitchell, based on his pedigree, based on what he's done in his past production, and based on his upside in this offense.
I agree. This is a perfect signing for the Patriots. It's really hard to see a downside to this because, like you mentioned, Jordan Matthews had a really down season last year in Buffalo. He was hurt. I believe he had 3 surgeries in that season. I think he only appeared in 10 games for the Bills. 25 catches. Really was just a complete non-factor. So there is a chance that he could come to this offense. He could be banged up. He could really kind of never gel with Tom Brady in this system, and he really doesn't make any sort of an impact. If he does that, the Patriots, he's only guaranteed to make $170,000. So if he doesn't work out, the Patriots can cut him with literally no penalty. And it's just a pure upside deal. And I mean, because if he, like you said, like you're projecting, becomes that number 3 wide receiver or even a number 4 wide receiver, a guy you're paying $1 million who has 3 really solid seasons under his belt in Philadelphia. I think he had more than 65 catches, more than 800 receiving yards in all 3 of those seasons. I think he had something like 19 touchdowns over those 3 seasons. So he was a really productive player in Philadelphia, and that really wasn't that long ago. Obviously, he's, like you said, with Mitchell, we got some injury concerns. We got to see how he looks once he gets back out on the field. But yeah, I really can't see a downside in this deal.
Yeah, and I mean, before last year, he really was an injury-prone player. I think he played all 16 games his first 3 seasons in the NFL. And one other thing just worth noting about the Bills last season is that their passing game was really pretty bad. They only threw for 3,000 yards last season, 3,086 yards. Nathan Peterman played in 4 games, and he was abhorrent as a quarterback. And just looking through the Bills wide receivers as far as catch rate goes, Jordan Matthews caught 69.4% of his catches. The next highest catch rate for a Bills wide receiver was Kelvin Benjamin at 59.3%. You had
Zay Jones was like 20%.
Zay Jones was 36.5%. Kalen Clay was 25%. I mean, the Bills team completion percentage was 60.7, but that was almost completely based on their running backs. LaShawn McCoy had 59 catches, and he had a 76.6% catch rate. So Jordan Matthews by far was the most efficient wide receiver there in their offense. And I don't know. I mean, I think the next step here is to talk about what role Jordan Matthews will have, because I think that a lot of people are projecting Matthews as a slot receiver in the Patriots offense. And I'm kind of looking at him from a different perspective, because throughout the Patriots, Bill Belichick tenure, all of their slot receivers have been undersized guys. They've been Troy Brown, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker, and Julian Edelman. And Jordan Matthews is 6'3", 212 pounds. It's certainly possible that Jordan Matthews will play in the slot, but I actually think that he'll play the most amount of his snaps outside, and I kind of project him more as a Brandon LaFell / Chris Hogan type. Both of those guys were players who primarily played out of the slot in their previous tenures prior to the Patriots. Then the Patriots moved them outside. And if you're playing on the Patriots, if you're a Patriots wide receiver, you need to have positional versatility. This is something that Kenny Britt talked about last year, where he had really only played one offensive role throughout his NFL career. He comes to the Patriots, and then they're moving him all around. I think the same thing will happen to Jordan Matthews. And if you're projecting Jordan Matthews as a slot receiver, then you're basically saying that Julian Edelman is going to play his entire season as an outside receiver in that Z role. And that's just, it's unlikely, because Julian Edelman plays half of his snaps in the slot. I see that happening moving forward. I think when the Patriots in 3 receiver sets, Edelman will continue to be in the slot. I think that Chris Hogan and Jordan Matthews will be your outside wide receivers.
Yeah, and if that is your kind of starting receiver trio, you have 3 guys that have experience playing in the slot and playing outside. So you can really just kind of rotate those guys around however you want. Obviously, Julian Edelman, even though he is a starting receiver, he's most known for his talents in the slot. So I do think that he will still kind of be the Patriots' number 1 slot receiver, if that really makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, those are 3 guys that can all move around. Malcolm Mitchell can kind of play in a couple different places around the field. So a lot of these receivers that are kind of battling to make this roster are guys you can really align all around the field, which is why I think that guys like Kenny Britt, even somebody like Philip Dorsett, might have a more of an uphill climb to make this roster with all these versatile guys above them.
Yeah, especially with Cordero Patterson on the roster as well. He's a guy who, I mean, you can't do nearly as much with him, but he's a specific weapon, and I can definitely see him making the roster over a guy like Britt or Dorsett. And I mean, if we're just talking contracts, Jordan Matthews is making less money than Philip Dorsett and Kenny Britt next year, which is pretty amazing. I mean, Kenny Britt's on he's got a cap hit of $1.46 million. Dorsett has got a cap hit of $1.544 million. Neither one of those guys has, I don't think they have, Dorsett can be cut for free. Britt would be cut with a $150,000 cap hit or cap
penalty or whatever,
dead cap penalty. So I don't know. I mean, it certainly makes more monetary sense to keep Matthews over those guys.
It's pretty remarkable how kind of affordable the Patriots receiving core is right now.
ridiculous.
I was looking through it the other day. They don't have a single receiver who's set to make more than $3 million in salary this season. Julian Edelman has the highest cap hit of that group. I think it's $4.2 million, which is 54th most of any wide receiver in the NFL. Then Chris Hogan's next on that list. I believe he's 60th. So it's really kind of going back to the Patriots' previous method of roster building, just kind of getting all of these cheap, sort of underrated guys from around the league and compiling them all together. And usually this ends up working out pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm trying to do some quick math here, but if you even add up all of the Patriots wide receiver cap hits, they might not even reach that $16 million that Sammy Watkins is set to make annually under his new contract. So very smart cap building, salary cap building there by Bill Belichick. Patriots did make a couple of other kind of low-level moves since we last talked. They signed tight end Troy Nicholas, which I actually had projected as a potential Patriots signing even before free agency. I'll give myself a little pat on the back there if you can hear that. I don't know why. I just thought that was a potential fit. And interior offensive lineman Luke Bowanko. I don't know.
We'll go with Bowanko. It sounds better.
He has mostly played center, but I think those are two guys who will basically just compete for roles on the roster. Neither one of them are certainly locks to make the 53-man roster out of training camp.
Absolutely, yeah. Bowanko, I kind of slot him in similarly to Matt Tobin, who they got earlier this year. He might even be below Tobin on that totem pole. Mostly played center and guard.
Totem pole?
The Tobin pole, yeah, that could work too. Interestingly, did start one game at left tackle for Baltimore last year, which is a little strange. So he's a guy that has that positional versatility. But yeah, I think he's definitely sort of a kind of roster-filling guy who will compete for a spot. And Troy Nicholas was a second-round pick, I believe, in 2014. Hasn't really had all that much production at the NFL level. Spent 4 seasons with the Cardinals. He's a guy that the Patriots can bring in and see what they see in him. They definitely need some tight end depth with Martellus Bennett not coming back and Dwayne Allen sort of a wild card after his disappointing last season. So yeah, two kind of low cost, potentially high upside moves. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
especially with Nicholas.
The Nicholas thing is interesting because, like you said, he was a first-round pick, but he has really severely underperformed since he came into the NFL in 2014. So we'll basically just have to see what the Patriots can get out of him. He certainly looks the part of Rob Gronkowski, but I don't know.
He's a big guy, right?
Yeah, he's 6'6", 270 pounds. It's possible that he has more receiving upside than Dwayne Allen just based on what Dwayne Allen did last season, but I think the tight end, despite the signing of Nicholas, is still an area where the Patriots might choose to address that during the draft. But the Patriots do also have, like we said, Dwayne Allen, Jacob Hollister, and Will Tye at tight end. So if they had to go into 2018 with Allen, Gronkowski, Hollister, Nicholas, and Tye, you could certainly do a lot worse than that.
Absolutely.
Because only 3 of those guys will make the roster.
It's basically the exact same group that they went into last season with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And obviously there are some questions about Rob Gronkowski, but it certainly seems at this point like he will play and will not be traded by the Patriots. You know, now that I've said that, he'll probably be traded by 4 p.m., so who knows. So next segment here is on the docket, and that's where we will look forward, moving forward into the offseason, and that is the draft, which is coming up actually very soon. On Friday, we have our pre-draft press conference with Bill Belichick, which is really early, actually. Even though I'm saying the draft is coming up, it's what, 2 weeks before the draft?
2 weeks before. It's also a departure from what they usually do because typically Nick Caserio is the one who handles this meeting with reporters. This year it's Bill Belichick. Who knows the reason for that? Maybe Nick Caserio has been very busy on the scouting circuit so far this year, so maybe he's just kind of busy with other things, and Bill Belichick's kind of filling in. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to hear what the coach has to say. We haven't really gotten to talk to him in a while. I guess reporters were able to talk to him down at the owners' meetings. But this will be one of the first kind of extensive media availabilities he's had since the Super Bowl.
Definitely, and he won't only be asked about the draft. I'm sure we'll ask him about the Brandon Cooks trade, about Jordan Matthews, about all those things that we were just talking about. But speaking of Brandon Cooks, as we were saying earlier, the Patriots trade and the acquiring of that other first-round pick gives the Patriots a lot of options in the draft. And one of those options, now that they have the number 23 pick, number 31 pick, number 43 pick, and the number 63 pick, is that they can actually move up for one of those top-tier quarterbacks if they so choose. And it certainly depends on how those quarterbacks are coming off the board. The latest news out there is that 5 quarterbacks or 6 quarterbacks could be taken in the first round of the draft. The top quarterbacks are Sam Darnold out of USC, Josh Rosen out of UCLA, Josh Allen out of Wyoming, Baker Mayfield out of Oklahoma, Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State, and Lamar Jackson out of Louisville. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the chances are that one of those guys starts to drop in the draft, but if any of them do, and if the Patriots are extremely high on any of those players, they do have the option of trading up in the draft, and this kind of triggered some Patriots fans. I wasn't exactly sure why, but there were some Patriots fans who were very angry at the prospect of the Patriots trading up for a quarterback. But I don't know. I mean, if the Patriots feel like they have to do that, they need a quarterback of the future. I'm not against it because I know that Patriots fans would love to just say, oh, they should just draft Kyle Aletta in the 2nd or 3rd round. Well, that depends on if he's still there when the Patriots are picking, which is no guarantee. So I don't know. If the Patriots feel like they need to trade up for a quarterback, I think they should do it.
Yeah, and with the Kyle Aletta or Logan Woodside or any of these kind of lower Luke Falk, any of these 3rd or 4th tier guys, we don't actually know if the Patriots consider them Patriots fits as much as a lot of us in the media might. So I don't know if you ask me straight up, should the Patriots trade up for a quarterback right now? I would probably say no. I don't think it's worthwhile to trade 3 or 4 relatively high draft picks to move up to, say, number 4 or number 5, just because I'm not totally sold on any of these top tier quarterbacks. I don't see a quarterback in that top 4 that would be worth kind of mortgaging the full front half of your draft for. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a good chance I'm wrong. I'm sure at least 1 or 2 of them are going to become very solid, if not great, NFL quarterbacks. I just don't, none of them stand out to me right now. Obviously, I am not the one making this decision, and the Patriots have done a lot more digging and studying on these guys than I have. But I don't know. Right now, I think that their best course of action is to use those top picks as a way to kind of complement their current roster, kind of make their team as good as they can be right now while Tom Brady is actually here, and then draft a successor or his potential successor either in the 3rd round, 2nd round, kind of later on in the draft. I'm pretty sure everybody agrees that they do need to draft a quarterback at some point in this draft. I don't think I would do it with one of those top picks, but you never know. Maybe if they really like Lamar Jackson and he falls to 23, or even if they have to move up from 23 to 20 or 19 and get that, I would be more kind of open to that than moving up 25 spots to get one of these top guys.
See, I actually think I don't know about top 4, because if they can move into the top 4 by using 23, 31, and 43 and keeping 63, then I think I might be on board with it. If they have to give up all 4 first and second round picks, it's a tougher sell. I wouldn't even mind them trading up into to number 9. That's where the San Francisco 49ers are picking. Yeah. If you trade up to number 9 for Baker Mayfield, or if one of those top 3 guys starts to fall to number 9, I wouldn't mind that either, just because I think the Patriots, as their roster is currently constructed, can make a Super Bowl and can win a Super Bowl.
Agreed.
So I think that it just depends on how you want to build for the future, basically. Do you want to build for the future with a linebacker at 23, or do you want to build for the future with a quarterback? And it is a lot harder to find a quarterback. And I think that as much as as all Patriots fans and even the media are saying, oh, just get Kyle Aletta or Luke Falk or Logan Woodside or any of these guys, I mean, there is a reason why they're 2nd tier and 3rd tier quarterbacks. And there's a reason why teams are valuing other players so much more highly than them as first round picks. So I think that it all just depends, obviously, on what the Patriots view from these quarterbacks. If they think that Josh Rosen can be Aaron Rodgers, or if they think that Lamar Jackson can be Michael Vick, then I mean, I certainly would not be opposed to it. I think that it would be tough to give up all of your first and second round picks for that quarterback as you're trying to still win Super Bowls with Tom Brady, and while you're still trying to field a competitive team while that future quarterback is on the field. But I mean, you do have to get a quarterback one way or the other. I think that Lamar Jackson would be certainly an interesting fit. Yeah. I'm still not convinced of all of the hype surrounding the Patriots and Lamar Jackson, just because it would be a very odd fit for the Patriots. And I think that, I'm not sure if I'm going to be the one willing to do this work. Someone else has probably already done it. It does seem like mobile quarterbacks are more injury prone and less durable than non-mobile quarterbacks. You look at Jake Locker, who retired after 3 seasons in the NFL, something like that. Even Deshaun Watson gets hurt halfway through his rookie season. You've got Robert Griffin III. There's a lot of these guys who are more mobile quarterbacks who do get hurt more frequently, it seems like, and they're season-ending type injuries. So I'm not sure if you want to count your future on that type of quarterback.
It would make sense too, because these guys are taking so many more hits.
Yeah.
When you're a mobile quarterback and you're scrambling past the line of scrimmage, there's a much higher chance of you taking a serious hit than a guy who just kind of stays in the pocket. Obviously, all quarterbacks take hits, but you put yourself in more kind of precarious positions more often. So I'm with you. I'm not fully sold on Lamar Jackson. It would be very interesting. From a media standpoint, I'd love to see them draft Josh Rosen. I'd love to see them draft Baker Mayfield, just because I think both of those guys would be fascinating to cover. And I think of that, I don't know. See, I still can't separate that top 4 into who I think is actually going to be the best NFL quarterback. And I don't know if it's just my dumb brain, but the fact that these 4 have been basically connected throughout the entire pre-draft process, and none of them have really emerged as the Andrew Luck of this draft class, or the kind of the top dog. It seems like I'm not fully sold on any of them, and it seems like a lot of people aren't fully sold on any of them. I don't know if that's just all the prospects are better this year, so it makes the elite ones look slightly less elite by comparison, which is probably the case, but it's just so difficult to kind of identify who the guy is in that top group.
I like Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield the most. I think that those are the guys who are the most accurate in college, and I think that that's something that certainly fits the Patriots offense the most. And Mayfield was really far more accurate than the rest of those guys, but he is undersized. He does have, I don't know if off-field issues is the right way to term it, or maybe it's maturity or something else. But I think that Mayfield has the potential to be the best on-field quarterback. I think that as long as he answers those questions off the field, as long as teams are comfortable with having a 6'1" quarterback, then I don't know. It just seems like he's got the it factor. He's a playmaker. He's extremely accurate. And he can throw the deep ball. He's good under pressure. He checks all of those boxes as a pure passer. It just depends on whether he can do it on an NFL field and with the NFL scrutiny. But we talked a lot about quarterbacks. Let's talk briefly about some other draft options, because the Patriots do have other needs in the draft. Number 1 among them, I would say, is left tackle.
Agreed. Even
though the Patriots do have Adrian Waddle signed for 1 season, they've got guys like Antonio Garcia and Cole Croston as kind of developmental guys. It would certainly help to get a Mike McGlinchey or a Colton Miller or a Brian McNeil in the 1st or 2nd round. And I think that linebacker is the other position that a lot of people are looking at as that 3rd biggest need behind left tackle and quarterback. Is that kind of what you're looking at and seeing as well?
I would agree, yeah. I would have offensive tackle and linebacker as my 1 and 2 right now, just because quarterback isn't a current pressing need.
Right.
I do think it is a need for them to get somebody in there in this draft, but yeah, I definitely, left tackle just still looks like the number 1 easily. Even if you're okay with starting Adrian Waddle in week 1 on the left side, he does not look like your long-term solution there, and nobody even really knows if he can be the short-term solution there, because he really doesn't have that much left tackle experience in his career.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, if I had to choose a position to address with that number, either the number 23 pick or the number 31 pick, I would definitely go offensive tackle. Colton Miller, like you mentioned, is a guy that I've been pretty high on throughout this whole process. There are some other guys in there, Mike McGlinchey, Connor Williams from Texas, Brian O'Neill, as you mentioned. So there are a lot of talented tackle prospects in this class, and it seems like all of them are kind of projected to go after pick 17 or so. There's no tackles that are projected as top 10 selections in this year's draft. So a lot of these guys should be available in that late 1st round range for the Patriots if that is the direction they want to go in.
Yeah, and those 3 guys that we were 3 of the 4 guys that we just mentioned, Colton Miller, Brian O'Neill, and Connor Williams, all 3 of those guys are good fits for the Patriots based on their measurables and athletic testing numbers. Colton Miller is the best fit among those guys, but Brian O'Neill is a highly athletic prospect. He ran a 4.82 at 297 pounds. Connor Williams has shorter arms for an offensive tackle, so some people think that he might have to move to guard in the NFL.
Yeah, he's currently
6'5", 33-inch arms.
Yeah, currently listed as a guard on the NFL.com's prospect rankings, which is interesting.
But he doesn't. His length really isn't that much different than Antonio Garcia. I think that Antonio Garcia had 33.25-inch arms, and like I just said, Connor Williams has 33-inch arms. So I mean, it's pretty close there. Connor Williams is a little bit shorter than Antonio Garcia, but I mean, I think that a team that drafts him could at least try to play him at left tackle right away. And just while we're talking about linebackers as well, Leighton Vander Esch from Boise State.
Huge Leighton Vander Esch guy.
Yeah, he's almost a perfect Patriots fit based on his measurables. He ran a 4.65 on a 1.56 10-yard split, 6.88 3-cone time. So he's certainly an option there at number 23 if the Patriots stay put. Another guy who I just inserted some more pro day numbers for, who's a really good fit for the Patriots in the 2nd or 3rd round, would be Jerome Baker out of Ohio State. He's definitely an undersized guy, 6'1", 229 pounds, but he ran a 4.53, 1.56 10-yard split with a 6.93 3-cone. He's a guy who could certainly fit that need for a coverage athletic linebacker, and he's a guy who's a teammate with one of the Patriots scouts, Cameron Williams, at Ohio State. I talked to Jerome Baker about playing with Cameron Williams at Ohio State at the NFL Scouting Combine, and he said that Cameron Williams was really a mentor for that young linebacking group when they were freshmen. So I think that Cameron Williams, I don't know if he's a young scout, so I'm not sure if he's really in Bill Belichick's ear, but if Bill Belichick reaches out to a guy like Cameron Williams, then he certainly knows what Jerome Baker is like, from a meeting standpoint, from a if he works hard, how he does in practice, all those things. He's got a really good grasp on him. I think
they've also got the Greg Schiano connection there too, and Belichick and Urban Meyer have had a good relationship in the past too. So a lot of Ohio State connections for the Patriots. Another quick guy in there, Rashaan Evans. A lot of people are talking about him as a potential either late 1st round or 2nd round pick from Alabama. Really like what I've seen from him on tape. Obviously, when you watch the Alabama defense, it's kind of hard to stand out rather, because they seem to have pro prospects at every single position. But he's a guy that really kind of flashes off the screen. A lot of talented linebackers coming up. I think it's a good year to need an offensive tackle and a linebacker. It seems like there are a lot of players that will be kind of candidates in the areas that the Patriots will be drafting and might be needing them. Definitely,
and it's a year without a top 10 pick probably at offensive tackle. So the top guys will be going off the board when the Patriots are picking. Just while we're talking about Evans, he's a guy who seems like he would be a Patriots fit from an athletic standpoint, but he didn't bench and he didn't run his 40, so we don't have bench numbers, we don't have 10-yard split, and we don't have a 40-yard dash. But he did run a 6.95 3-cone, which certainly fits what the Patriots like. He had a 9'8" broad jump, which fits what the Patriots would like. He is definitely a little bit undersized at 6'2", 232, but that's what the Patriots need. They need that undersized linebacker. A couple other guys who might fit that need would be Fred Warner out of BYU. The Patriots have gone to the BYU well at linebacker a few times recently. They traded for Kyle Van Noy. They signed Harvey Longy as an undrafted free agent last year, so it's certainly possible the Patriots like what the Cougars are doing there in Utah at linebacker. So he would be a fit maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. And there's a few Florida State guys, Oren Burks out of Vanderbilt. The rest of those guys are kind of the lower tier prospects, but certainly a lot of choices there at linebacker. Before we wrap this up and get to our interview with Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus, any other positions that you see the Patriots potentially targeting early in the draft?
We talked about it a little before, but tight end, they're kind of similar to offensive tackle and linebacker. There are a lot of quality tight ends that should be available in that 1st round to early 2nd round range. Hayden Hurst from South Carolina, Dallas Goedert. I believe Gettert or Godert. I think it's Gettert from from South Dakota State is another one. Mike Gesicki from Penn State is kind of an athletic option who's not really much of a blocker, so he probably wouldn't really fit the Patriots system. But yeah, definitely a couple talents in there that could interest the Patriots, because even if they don't have a dire need at tight end this year, since Rob Gronkowski is coming back, the fact that there was all this retirement flirtation means that they have to go into every season not knowing whether Rob Gronkowski is going to be on their roster. So it would really behoove them to find a quality starting caliber player who can both play alongside him and potentially replace him once he goes out the door.
Yeah, two names I'm looking at there are Ian Thomas out of Indiana. He's a potential third-round pick. He's currently rated as the 94th overall prospect by NFLDraftScout.com. Patriots are picking, 95, I believe. So that could certainly be in range 95 for a third-round pick. And then Will Dissly out of Washington. He would probably be a sixth-round pick. He's a guy who started his career as a defensive end, so he wore number 98 in college, which always kind of threw me off. But Bill Belichick sometimes likes guys who don't have a ton of experience at the position where the Patriots are drafting him, because they're a little bit more easily moldable that way. That's kind of what you saw with Jamie Collins when they drafted him. Eric Rowe, when they traded for him, he was a guy who played a lot of safety in college. They play him at cornerback now. So Will Dissly, the fact that he played defensive end in college and then moved to tight end in kind of his last couple of years, he's not as athletic as a Ian Thomas or a Mike Gesicki or a Hayden Hurst, but he's a decent blocker, and he's a guy who's a little bit more of a raw talent that you might be able to mold there at tight end. So definitely some interesting options all across the board for the Patriots among many positions. So anything else before we throw to Steve?
No, plenty more draft talk coming with Steve now.
Absolutely. Welcome to Pelagolo from Pro Football Focus. Cousin Steve, how are you doing?
Doing great. It's cousin Doug. Yeah, we're basically family at this point.
Yeah, you are. I did the math today. You're my step first cousin once removed in law.
Yes, that's family as far as I'm concerned.
Oh so, we're blood. Yeah, you are my wife's mom's first cousin's stepdaughter's husband.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. And I'm on the other. Yeah, I'm not going to reverse that because I think you covered it.
Yeah, I think that is that's perfect right there. So you are an analyst for Pro Football Focus. Anyone can hear a baby crying in the background. That's on my end. We both have babies, but mine's the one who's crying right now. But Pro Football Focus, I've been having a lot of fun with your draft guide, and people can get that either through signing up for PFF Elite or PFF Edge, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Just put a whole bunch of different products into just two different offerings to keep it nice and simple.
Well, I cannot highly recommend PFF Elite more, and if you don't have the funds for PFF Elite, PFF Edge certainly will do, because of the draft guide. It's a lot of fun. So you guys do a ton of work during the draft, during the season. Right now we are focusing on the draft because that is clearly on the horizon here. And you guys definitely have a different ranking than most sites that you see. You always have some guys scattered in there who are a lot higher on your board than they are on other sites. And a lot of times those guys turn out to be stars in the NFL. Trey Flowers is one of those guys. I think that Henry Anderson was another hit that you guys had. Who are some guys that you guys like a lot more in this year's draft than you might see on other sites?
Yeah, I mean, before we even get into the quarterbacks, because I feel like the quarterbacks are ranked every which way, depending on who you're talking to. But, Maurice Hurst, the interior defensive lineman from Michigan, is a guy that a lot of people have maybe in the first round, but he's not like a lock first rounder for, I think, all the people that are doing mock drafts and all that stuff. But for us, we're looking at him as maybe a top 5 player in this draft, just because from a production standpoint, really a dominant player for 3 years at Michigan. And he gets this undersized label, but he's about 290 pounds, and we see plenty of 290-pound defensive tackles wreaking havoc all around the NFL. Feels like Hurst could be that next guy just because of how explosive he is and just how disruptive he is as a pass rusher and against the run. And then a guy like Derwin James, the safety out of Florida State, we have him as a top 5 player as well. Again, people are all over the place on him, but I don't know that he's a lock top 5 or top 10 guy for a lot of people. But for us, our top-graded safety for his only 2 full seasons of playing college football. So he just affects the game in so many ways. So we're definitely big fans of him. Just one other guy to note is Frank Ragnow from Arkansas, a guy that I think gets overshadowed a little bit by Quentin Nelson from Notre Dame, who's awesome. Nelson deserves all the hype, but Ragnow has been our top-graded center for 2 straight years, and he's maybe not in Nelson's league, but he's pretty close, and I don't think everybody else really has him locked in the first round like we do.
Yeah, Hurst is one of those guys, just to go off the top there, who I guess might be a little bit reminiscent of maybe like a Grady Jarrett type. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's definitely fair. And Jarrett that went in the 5th, and 3 years ago, we were saying, hey, he's a first-round type of player. I think he's played like a first-round type of player. And when you look at guys like Grady Jarrett, Aaron Donald, Mike Daniels, Geno Atkins, a lot of those guys are in that shorter, 6 feet, 6'1", 290-pound range, and that's what you're getting from Hurst.
And who are some of the guys that you guys, PFF, might be a little bit more down on than most guys who you might think might be a little bit overdrafted when the draft comes around later this month?
So it feels like it's tough to tell right now who is going to sneak into that back 20. I don't know that it's really a clear, 20 through 40 group of players, but when you hear guys like Tremaine Edmonds, and I hate saying guys are overrated when I like them, but Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker from Virginia Tech, I like him quite a bit, but we're talking top 10 type of hype, or if he goes over Roquan Smith, the linebacker from Georgia, I think that would be a mistake. Smith's just such a good, clean, polished player, and Edmonds is just a high upside player that hasn't really tapped into it yet. So I think he's a little overrated. I really like Bradley Chubb as a player, but I don't think he's this lock top 5 pick like a lot of people are saying, just because he's not truly an elite pass rusher at this point. And then with the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, the fact that he's getting, number 1 overall hype, I just feel like the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnolds, and Josh Rosens of the world are much, much cleaner prospects than Allen, who has so much volatility to his game that I'd be more inclined to take him back into the first or maybe into the second rather than, putting everything on him as far as it being, him being a top 5 type of pick.
Before we get a little bit deeper into the quarterbacks, I just did have a question on Josh Allen. Obviously, we all know the accuracy issues that he had at Wyoming. What do you guys like about Josh Allen's game, though?
Yeah, so generally my issue with evaluating quarterbacks is if the first thing you say about a guy is, well, he has a cannon for an arm, then it's usually not a good sign. And a lot of times that's the first thing that comes up with Allen. But the arm is legit. The velocity that he creates is absolutely incredible. I do think it's probably the best pure velocity that we've seen since maybe Cam Newton. I do think he makes a ton of really good plays outside of structure. And I keep saying, I was at the beginning of a lot of this hype train with Josh Allen. It was mid-2016. I'm watching Late Night Wyoming, and this guy's throwing dimes on the run, running to his left, 55 yards in the air, and I'm like, okay, that's an Aaron Rodgers type of play. Now, let's go back and actually watch him play, and there's just too many plays where, that's the best thing he does is make those plays outside of structure, doesn't make enough plays within the flow of the offense. So there's plenty to like about Josh Allen. I think the concerns are just where the weaknesses are, and that's, going through his progressions, finding open receivers and hitting them. Those are tough things to improve at the next level.
Certainly, and Josh Allen hasn't really been tied to the Patriots, but the Patriots are looking for a quarterback in this draft to supplant Tom Brady at some point in the next 4 or 5 years.
15 years maybe.
Right. Yeah, maybe when he's 55, 56. They can keep this guy on a rookie contract for a while. But they could really take anyone from, the 4th overall pick all the way into the 2nd and 3rd round. So it's pretty tough to predict at this point which quarterbacks are even on the Patriots' radar. But the Patriots very well. This quarterback class very well. Who do you think among this class is the best fit for the Patriots?
Yeah, I think the best fit for the Patriots is probably just the best quarterbacks in general. I have Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma, Sam Darnold from USC, and Josh Rosen from UCLA in a slightly different tier, I think, from the next group of guys. Now, I do expect those guys to be off the board in the top 5. So if we are talking that next group of guys, I could see a Mason Rudolph out of Oklahoma State who's more of a pure pocket passer. pretty good at the intermediate and downfield level. I think he'd be solid, but again, he's one of those guys. I think the Patriots will have to adjust to whoever they're drafting. It's not like they're going to get this guy that is just a Tom Brady clone. And even Garoppolo wasn't a Tom Brady clone. So, Rudolph would be a guy I could see them investing in. There's a lot of smoke around Lamar Jackson potentially, and of course he's not even close to a Tom Brady clone. He's the complete opposite. A guy that, the narrative is that he just runs around and makes plays. That's not true at all. Like, he does know how to go through progressions and all that stuff. But he just, he's not accurate on a throw-for-throw basis. But his athleticism is absolutely incredible, and that can be built around, I think, at the next level. And he is capable of making NFL-type throws. So I think you really have to build an offense around Lamar Jackson's skill set. And if we're talking a little bit later in the draft, there's been a lot of links. Well, there's my son right now. Hey, buddy. I know there's been a lot of links to Kyle Lauletta from Richmond, and stylistically, he does fit a lot of what the Patriots like to do. He's very good at the intermediate level, the 10 to 19-yard range. He was our highest-graded guy there. Kind of struggled with the deep ball, and he's just got this really good feel for throwing in the middle of the field. So stylistically, I think that's probably the closest fit to what they do right now. But again, I think a lot of these guys, you just have to adjust to their skill set. That's the biggest thing.
Real quick before we let you go, I did want to touch on Jackson a little bit more because there is so much smoke around there. Yep. I'm not sure it's about the fit there. It would be a very interesting fit in the Patriots offense, but he did play in a relatively similar offense at Louisville. Just how would you see him fitting into the Patriots offense? Would they just have to completely restructure things for him, do you think?
I think they would have to. I think the idea of, he's playing in a similar offense, that kind of helps the transition a little bit, but you're not going to invest in a guy just because he might be familiar with terminology, say.
Right.
For Lamar Jackson, he reminds me of Michael Vick for three basic reasons. Michael Vick could make special NFL throws. He would, on a pure throw-for-throw basis, he was inaccurate, though. He would miss throws, hit the wrong shoulder on a slant, completely overthrow a guy. And then he had special athleticism that could play at the NFL level to the point that you needed to let him tap into it. And he had a 1,000-yard rushing season and, may not have had the best passing stats, but was clearly a difference maker running the football. I think Lamar can be similar, where you'll get some special throws. He'll make some tight window throws, tight window red zone stuff. Throw for throw, though, he'll frustrate you a little bit. He's not going to go 10 for 10 on a drive and just be precision, throwing the ball down the field. But you can make for some easier throws with his athleticism. So if you use him in the run game and let him run some design stuff and work play action off of that, you could probably mitigate some of those accuracy issues by just creating some easier throws. And that's what happened at Louisville. He had a lot of easy open throws at Louisville, and I don't think it was purely scheme-based. I think it was because you really have to account for him as a runner. So I think he's got a special enough skill set that you could build an offense around him. It's a little bit riskier than maybe some of the top guys, but I keep saying there's a path to success for Lamar Jackson at the next level as a QB.
It certainly will be interesting to see how those quarterbacks come off the board in 2 weeks during the NFL draft. And I would say that before the draft, after the draft, definitely invest in PFF Edge or PFF Elite because you will want to know what your new players look like. And I think that, the Pro Football Focus Draft Guide is a great way to see that. You get all the coverage grades. You get all the pass rush productivity. You get the adjusted completion percentage of all of these college players. It's a great tool to have. You can follow Steve on Twitter at PFF_Steve. You can go to ProFootballFocus.com. Anything else you want to plug there, Steve?
No, I think you hit it pretty well. All the Edge and Elite package, they come with a whole bunch of different tools and, everything you need with the draft guide, and then our QB annual, which we were proud of as well, taking all the NFL quarterbacks and top draft-eligible quarterbacks and doing about 8 to 10 pages of analysis on all those guys, stuff you can't really find anywhere else. And it's all, you sign up for Edge and you get all that stuff. So it's pretty fun.
Good stuff. Thanks as always for talking to Steve, and I will see you at some sort of family reunion soon.
Yeah, absolutely, Cousin Doug. We'll hopefully catch you sometime this summer. We'll have to have some big family pool party. Let's set that thing up.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cousin Steve.